Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our Thursday edition of the BeaverWorks Summer Institute seminar series. Thank you. Please don't forget to put your name in the chat for attendance purposes. Today we have another exciting speaker, and this time on a very timely topic of virtual learning. We're fortunate to have Professor Anant Agarwal here from the EECS department at MIT. He is the CEO of edX, which is an online learning destination that was founded by MIT and Harvard. And a couple fun facts here. The first time he taught, the first course that he taught on edX was a circuits and electronics course, and it drew 155,000 students from 162 countries. So it was a massive success, and I'm sure all of you have heard of edX. He has formerly been director of the CSAIL. We've had a couple faculty presenting from CSAIL over the course of this seminar series. But he's also quite an entrepreneur, and he's co-founded several companies, including Tylera and Virtual Machine Works. He's also a very distinguished professional and teacher, receiving several recognitions. The Maurice Wilkes Prize for Computer Architecture, the MIT Smullen and Jameson Prizes for Teaching. He was a 2016 recipient of the Harold W. McGraw Jr. Prize for Higher Education, and he's received the Padma Shri Award from the President of India. And one last fun fact before I turn it over to Professor Agarwal is that he holds the Guinness World Record for the largest microphone array. So not only do you have a very accomplished professor and entrepreneur, but a Guinness World Record holder as well. So please remember to put your questions in the chat. I will recognize you at the right time to ask your questions. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Professor Agarwal. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Jen. I am delighted to join you all, although I must admit that the Guinness World Record that my students and I set in 2002, 2003 for the world's largest microphone array, that was actually beaten about 5 years ago by by a company whose name I forget. So, but it took about, I think it was about 12 or 15 years before the record got broken. So not quite there. So thank you all for inviting me. This is the second time I am chatting with this incredible group of students from BeaverWorks. Of course, all of us are hunkered down at home, and it's great that we're able to use the this virtual mode to talk to each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw up a few slides and talk a little bit about edX and the future of learning, what the workplace looks like out there, talk about what's COVID-19 doing to us, what's the future of education, and talk a little bit about the vision for the future. And I'd love to brainstorm with you in the Q&A session about this future. So let me see if I can share my screen and get the presentation up. There we go. Can one of you confirm that you are able to see the presentation on the screen?
All set. We can see it.
No, I haven't gotten anything.
If you have any issues, please type that into the chat session so that someone may be able to help you out. So the presentation is titled "A New Normal for Education." And before I go into talking about the new normal, what I do want to say is that I want to rewind back to February of this year, before COVID. Okay, so before COVID, all of us were worried about the future of work. I know most of you are in high school, and so work is after college. But to give you a sense, all of us were worried about what's going to happen in 2030, when many studies showed that about half of today's jobs would be gone due to automation and AI and things like that. And there's a lot of concern about what's going to happen to the world. And you just look at industries all around us, digitization and computerization, automation, and AI have completely changed a lot of our businesses. Just look at Netflix. They have completely transformed the entertainment industry. Look at Airbnb and our own TripAdvisor. They have completely transformed the hospitality industry. And, or Uber, for that matter, who's transformed the automotive, the transportation industry. So these companies have completely transformed industries through platform technologies. And entire businesses have completely changed due to technology. But what is amazing is that education really hasn't changed a whole lot. And even our children have completely changed. College-going students, all of you have grown up as digital natives. You see my daughter here, and this is how she learns. When I went to a room to ask her what was she up to, I thought she was watching YouTube videos, but no, she's actually, at least she pretended to. She said she's doing a physics web assignment. And so, this is how students are learning in high schools, and even at work. You see more and more people are learning on the go. People are being digital. People are learning in small groups. So the world is changing around us in terms of learning as well. But what is amazing, excuse me, is our schools and colleges haven't changed. But this could be a typical classroom that any one of you has been in recent times. Our classes haven't changed. So that's a backdrop here. Against this backdrop, edX was formed about 9 years ago. Excuse me. edX was formed by Harvard and MIT. We are a nonprofit learning platform. And our basic motto is, excuse me, how do we expand access to quality education to learners all over the world? How do we use digital technology to increase access to learning for anybody with an internet connection? Much like today, you can access entertainment at your fingertips. Can we access education, excuse me, at our fingertips? And I promise you, this is not, my cough is not from COVID. I'm just, it looks like a dry throat here, sorry. So you can go to our website, edX.org. We're a nonprofit. And just like TripAdvisor is a platform, or Netflix is a platform, where they work with content producers on the one hand, and consumers on the other hand. It's a two-sided network. Similarly, edX is a platform. We're a platform organization, and we partner with some of the top universities in the world and companies like MIT, Harvard, Oxford, Berkeley, Columbia, NYU, Stanford, and others that offer courses on edX. Excuse me. And on the other side, we have students from all over the world who are coming and learning on edX. If you were in a live audience, I would ask you to have a show of hands of how many of you have learned on edX. But I guess you can do that too. I guess you can hand raise within Zoom. So how many of you have heard about edX? How many of you have learned on edX? We have large numbers of high schoolers who come to, oh my goodness. So it turns out that I did not realize the Zoom feature. Wow. If you have a background, if you have someone talking in the background, could you put yourself on mute? A lot of that audio is coming through. So it looks like 52 of you have raised your hands. It's a nice feature of Zoom, I guess. So 52 people raised their hands saying that they've taken, learned on edX and so on. So I'm seeing a lot of background. Can people put themselves on mute?
I don't think the music is ever going to work.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. 64 participants have raised their hands. This is fantastic. So many of you heard of edX and you're learning on edX. We have learners coming to edX from all over the world. We have 33 million unique learners on edX like yourselves. And they're coming from all over the world, from every single country in the world. We have 3,000 courses, and together we have issued 2 million certificates for people that have completed our courses. Of these 33 million global learners, about 10% tend to be high schoolers. So about over 3 million are like you who are learning on edX and taking high school courses. So you're in big and great company. So what does the edX platform look like? For those of you who've learned on edX, you know what this is, but I thought I'd share with you some background on why this is important. So the basic pedagogy, pedagogy stands for the learning process. The basic pedagogy of the edX platform is called active learning. So on the edX platform, we just don't have you sit in a one-hour lecture. We show you short videos, and we interleave the videos with interactive exercises. So you watch a 5 or 10 minute video, and that is followed by a quick little exercise so you can test your knowledge very quickly. So that mode of learning where you interleave videos and exercises is called active learning. And active learning has been known to provide great learner outcomes. It's much, much better than just plain old passive learning. There's also instant feedback. I'll tell you a fun story. So with instant feedback, you're given problems like the one I show you on the screen here. It's a little resistor network that you might find in one of your physics courses. And you can enter the answer. And you can enter all kinds of answers. Sometimes the answer requires equations, sometimes numbers, sometimes a multiple choice. You enter the answer, and when you click submit, it tells you immediately whether you got it right or wrong. And you get this green check mark. And so this brings an element of gamification into learning that can make learning and this instant feedback just incredible fun. And I'll tell you a little joke. We had a student who took the circuits course. I taught the circuits course on edX that Jen mentioned earlier, had 155,000 students enrolled. And after they enrolled in my circuits course, where they did a lot of the problem sets, they went and took a course from Berkeley. And they saw the prototypical green check mark again, and as they answered questions there. And on the discussion forum, this is what they had to say about the green check mark. Oh God, have I missed you? So you can see that, look, I mean, can you imagine students having fun? And a large part of the fun is getting immediate feedback. And immediate feedback is so important. And let me give you an analogy so that you really, really get it, right? How many of you have played a video game? Now raise your hand. I'll be personally hurt if there's more than 63. So a lot more people have played video games than have learned on edX. So we have, so looks like about half of you have played video games, right? So in a video game, let's say you do something. Let's say you're shooting a basketball. You shoot a basketball. The ball goes into the hoop, and the ball has gone through the hoop, and you've won some points. Imagine as you're playing the video game, you shoot the ball into the basket. And just as the ball is about to go into the basket, the game freezes up and says, okay, we will tell you whether it went in or not 2 weeks later. Come back in 2 weeks. If that happened, now raise your hand to let me know how many of you would be playing that video game. If each time you shot a ball, or each time you shot a bad guy, or each time you raced a car, the game said, okay, I'll tell you whether you got any points 2 weeks later. You have to wait 2 weeks, right? So raise your hand if you'd still play that video game. So we have some, so we have about 18 diehards who'd still play it. I guess the number is going down. But the point here is that video game would not be very much fun. And it's this instant feedback that is at the heart, of gamification and fun. And by bringing instant feedback into learning, we can make learning fun. And frankly, learning science has shown that this improves learning outcomes as well. When you're having fun, you learn better. So here's a very famous paper from 2010 from Chen and others, that rapid feedback has a significant and positive effect on student performance when compared to no instant feedback. Okay, it's not only fun, it is known to give positive outcomes. And so this is science. Learning science is telling us this. And so by online learning, we can get all of these affordances that you cannot get with in-person learning, where grading takes weeks. I still remember I have some homeworks from my undergraduate days for which I still have not received the graded homeworks back, but be that as it may. So this is a course that Jen talked about. And we had 155,000 students take the first course on edX. So not only do you get all this instant feedback and all the fun, but we can also teach large numbers. The point of this slide is to show that we were able to teach 155,000 students with the same quality of learning as campus learning, with the same staff resources as a 150-person class at MIT. We actually did experiments in 2016 and 2017, where half the students from class took this course completely online on edX, and half the MIT students took this completely campus course fully in person, and they were both given the same exam. And we did an A/B test, and the research papers are available on that. And the results showed that the stress level of the students was one whole standard deviation lower in the online class. The learning outcomes were pretty similar within the experimental deviation. And so these experiments show that outcomes can be similar or even better than in person, but we can scale to hundreds of thousands from all over the world, where people can learn from everywhere and come to this model. So very interesting. At the end of the course, 7,000 students passed and earned a certificate in this MIT hard course. And on campus, I might teach about 100 to 200 students a year. And so what is interesting is that in this course, in one course online, I was able to teach as many students online as I would have taken in 35 to 40 years as an MIT faculty. Okay, so all of this is before COVID. We're doing this amazing thing, teaching online, learners coming to edX. Many of you have learned on edX, and then COVID hits. So in early March, at least in the US, COVID hits. And the whole world, from being in person, 3% of the world was learning online. So you were learning online on edX as an example, and you were among 3% of the world. But after COVID, 100% of universities, 100% of the students began to learn online, okay? So what did we see happening online on edX? First of all, we saw a massive uptick in interest and enrollments in edX. We found 15 times more enrollments coming per day than before. In fact, in the month of April alone, 5 million new students came to edX to learn. And we did more in 1 month of April than we did in the entire, it took us 1 whole year to do in 2019. So COVID-19 just accelerated everything by 10x. Boom, just like that, overnight. And then as we did this, we realized that as universities began to realize that not only is the online methodology something that is very convenient, more and more universities are realizing that maybe this is here to stay. And I'll talk more about what I see as the future of education and where is the world going to after COVID. And as many of you are applying to college and going to college and so on, you will see the outcomes of this. And as you see colleges doing more and more online, I want you to remember some of the data points I showed you, that online has been shown to be less stressful for MIT students taking the online course versus the campus course. Results are pretty similar. So the amazing results showing that it is a good thing. So next, what I'd like to brainstorm a little bit with you is, what is the future of education? And, not just post-COVID, but even before COVID hit, I was pretty convinced what I'm going to talk about is the future of education, and all that COVID has done is rapidly and dramatically accelerated the trends that were already happening before. Okay, so let me talk about some of these trends. There are 3 really important trends. One is called blended learning. Second is called modular learning, and third is lifelong learning. Okay, let's talk about each of these 3 trends that I believe will become the new normal, dramatically accelerated by COVID. So blended learning. So blended learning is learning where you are using both in-person and online modalities. Okay, so for example, in one blended learning model, this was used by a professor in one of the chemistry courses. Professor Seema, Michael Seema used this in one of the chemistry courses where the students would come to lecture on campus, actually. They'd come to lecture in a classroom. But all the homeworks were done online, so they got instant feedback. That is one way of blending. A second way of blending might be, hey, look, you do all your lectures online by watching videos, but then you submit problem sets in person or you do problem sets together in person. So there are various ways of blending. And so I've come up with this chart to predict that the future of learning at universities will be blended. Okay, so let's walk through this chart. I want you to track the green curve, okay, the green curve. And if you squint really hard, it looks like a inverted pan. So I call it the inverted pan curve of adoption. So before March, we were in BCE, before COVID era. And after March, when COVID happened, we went to COVID era CE. Okay, it's a play on BCE and CE. So before COVID hit, before March, learning was completely in person and online was virtually zero. And then COVID hits and then learning goes 100% online. Okay, spring semester was online. Fall semester in most universities is virtually online as well. Okay, certainly MIT announced that all classes will be available virtually. And so this is the heating surface of the pan where all learning went online 100% during spring and fall of this year. And then let's say, for example, there's a good chance that a vaccine comes out at the end of this year or early next year. And universities will try to go back to in-person. There'll be some rubber banding back, but we're never going to go back to zero because professors and students have now all tasted online. And by and large, 70, 80% of them are liking what they are seeing. Students like the flexibility. They can learn when they want. Just imagine not having to go to class at 8 o'clock in the morning. Raise your hand as to how many of you would enjoy not going to class at 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, how many of you would enjoy it if you could study at 2 a.m. at night or 11 p.m. at night or 11 a.m. in the morning? How many of you would enjoy not having to go to class at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning? Raise your hand. What is interesting is that more of you raised your hand here than play video games. To me, that is big. And so why do we drag students into class? I hated my early morning classes. Why can't we be more flexible and enable learning flexibly for students? No conflicts, no class conflicts, learn when you want. But this is amazing. So we're never going to go back fully to zero even in spring. And we will rubber band back to what used to be, but it's never going to go back to zero. That is why you see this neck. You see a trough here. But then over the next 2 or 3 years, as universities create more and more online content, we're going to go to around August 2025, in about 3 or 4 or 5 years, is going to go to blended learning, which is roughly 50% online and 50% in person. I predict that the future of learning is blended, and you're going to see 50% online, 50% in person. So we can do the best possible things online with instant feedback, and we can do the teamwork and students working with each other, all of that in person. I believe this inverted pan curve is the future of learning. And I've released this chart under a Creative Commons license so that you can freely use it and share it however you want. So that's blended learning. So I believe all campuses will be moving to blended learning in the future. The next part in the future of education is modular education. Modular education means that today you get a degree. Okay, you go to university, you spend 4 years, you get a degree. Let's say after 2 years, you decide, hey, look, I want to go work for a year. I want to work for 2 years. I want to pause. That's not considered a good thing. And you're called a dropout. And you have to wait for 4 years before you get something, some credential you can show for it. But modular education means that you can learn in modular chunks, in pieces, and you get benefit for each of the pieces. So one example of modular chunks is a new program, a new product we've launched called micro-bachelor's programs. Instead of bachelor's degrees, you have micro-bachelor's programs. And one example is computer science fundamentals from NYU on edX. It doesn't require background in computer science. You pass it, you get a micro-bachelor's from NYU. So it is faster. So you can earn, even if you're in high school, you can take it. It's 3 short courses. It's career focused, so as soon as you finish it, you get a great credential. a micro bachelor's, and you can put that on your resume or on your LinkedIn. It's flexible, it's open admissions, no applications. Imagine, how many of you would enjoy college if you had no applications process, if it was open admissions, right? You could go to any college of your choice, raise your hand if you would enjoy, not having to fill out those danged, hateful application forms. So with the microbachelor's programs, open admissions, oh my God, even more people would enjoy not having to fill out college applications. Why do we have you fill out college applications? Shouldn't you be able to study wherever you want? Isn't education a human right? You should be able to study whatever you want from wherever you want. Bob, don't you agree with me on this? Absolutely. Bob is raising his thumb. So as a professor, I want to teach everybody. Why do we not admit everybody into college, into our university? The reason we cannot is the campus has a limit. Right? The campus cannot hold more than a certain number of students. But online, you saw the circuit's course at 150,000 students, no limits, no boundaries. Education without borders. Wouldn't that be fun? So it's fully online. It's open admissions. It's credit backed. So when you finish a microbachelor's program, you get immediate college credit on a university transcript. So you complete the microbachelor's. One of our partners, Thomas Edison State University, will give you credit on their transcript. So even while you're in high school, you begin to earn credit on a college transcript, and it's affordable. Okay, it's $167 a credit, and you could earn a bachelor's degree by stacking up many of these for about $20,000, not per year, but total. But something like this is revolutionizing education, where modular programs can stack up, microbachelors stack up, and ultimately get a bachelor's degree. So it's really cool. It's short. You get a credential. You can get a job with it. It's flexible. It's open admissions. It's online. You can do it from anywhere. It stacks to a bachelor's degree, and it's very affordable. And you can do innovative things like this completely online. So we have a number of these micro-bachelor's programs on edX, and we have thousands of high schoolers coming and doing this and earning college credit. And many universities will accept that as transfer credit in college. So imagine, before you complete your high school, imagine if you can get 1 year of college under your belt. And so I'm a big believer in this model of education, which is modular. You learn in chunks, and then you stack it up as you go along. And so just give you more detail on the micro-bachelor's program. The computer science program that I talked about, there's intro to programming, there's some networking, some systems, and you complete that. You can complete that in about 3 to 6 months. You earn a micro-bachelor's from NYU. And using that, you can use that to get internships, or you can use that as a pathway to degrees and accumulate that credit for college. So here's one student. So Vasu is a college student from India. In his case, he's not a high schooler. He's actually a college student. And even while he was in college, he said, you know what, even while I'm in college, I want to earn a micro-bachelor's so that I can learn something and get a credential from NYU on my resume and make me much, much stronger, and make my resume much, much stronger, and help me learn something much better. So just a real example of a student. Now we come to the third piece, which is two pieces we talked about: blended learning and modular learning. The third piece is lifelong learning. Okay, what is lifelong learning? And online education is the enabler for lifelong learning. So lifelong learning is one where you really have to be learning all through your life. Okay, gone are the days when you're going to learn for 4 years in college and then work throughout the rest of your life. Those days are gone. And I'll tell you why you need lifelong learning. So Andrew is from United Airlines, and he has a family, he has a child, and you see his family here. He quickly learned that most of the business was project-based. Okay, and he already has a degree, right? But he's now learning, maybe a few years out, oh my God, I need project-based stuff. I have not learned it. I don't have that skill set. What do? I'm stuck. I have a family. I can't leave my family and go get a degree, a master's degree from a university. Oh my God, a master's degree is $70,000. I don't have the money. Oh my God, I can't leave my family for 1 year or 2 years and go to a campus in a different country or a different state. Oh my God, they need an applications process. How do I get my transcript from my previous college or high school? How do I apply? Where do I get recommendation letters? I mean, the whole system, the whole education system is stacked up against lifelong learning. It just doesn't work. But online learning is the enabler. So what did he do? So In the traditional education, it takes too long. He doesn't have 2 years. It costs too much. And he just doesn't have the time. He can't travel. He cannot leave family. He cannot stop work. Okay, this is life today. It's a disaster. Okay, so what do? It's tough. So what he did instead is he learned from, just like the micro bachelors, we have micro masters programs on edX. Okay, what is a micro masters? A master's degree is 1 year or 2 years. A micro masters is about 25%. It's 1/4 of a master's degree. Okay, you can complete that in 6 months. It's endorsed by employers, so it's career focused. It's flexible. Oh my God, it's open admissions, right? No filling out application forms. It's about $1,000, not super expensive, and you get a pathway to credit. Excuse me. So he took the project management micromasters from Rochester Institute of Technology on edX. He completed it, and this is where he is today. So he completed his master's in micromasters in project management, completely online, and today he's a project manager at United Airlines. The world is going to look more and more like this, where people are going to be getting micro credentials fully online while they're working, while they have families. And this kind of lifelong learning is the future. And I want you all to prepare for it. Assume that you're going to be getting micro credentials throughout life and learning continuously. And 91% of the learners who have achieved MicroMasters credentials report a positive career outcome within 3 months of getting it. A pay raise, a promotion, or a new job, just like Andrew. 91%. So let me stop there and very quickly keep 3 things in mind. The future of learning, as you go to college, be prepared. Learning will become blended. Okay, online is not a curiosity. It's going to be blended. You'll be learning both online and in person. Second, learning will become modular, where be prepared, even as you're in college, acquire these modular credentials so you get certificates you can put on your resume. Imagine I was in IIT Madras. Heck, if I had micro bachelors, even before my second year at IIT Madras, I could have had a micro bachelor's from NYU in computer science, in introduction to computer science. I put that on my resume and get an internship over the summer. And these things can stack up towards full bachelor's degrees. And the cost is such that once we have enough micro bachelors, $20,000 to a full bachelor's degree. And then third is lifelong learning. Prepare for a life, prepare for a career where even while you work, you will be learning online and be a continuous lifelong learner. If you're in a job involving mechanical engineering, make sure to learn some computer science. Make sure to learn some business. Make sure to learn some writing. So more and more jobs are getting more and more hybrid. Hybrid skills are getting more and more important. And so even as you get degrees, make sure to get all these hybrid skills. And frankly, modular credentials are perfect for those. So with that, let me pause. And I am delighted to take questions from you all.
Thank you, Professor Agarwal. As you can imagine, we have been flooded with questions. There are a lot of really good questions here. I'd like to maybe kick it off with Emma, who wants to talk about some of the academic honesty perspectives from this. Emma, would you like to unmute and ask your question, please?
Yeah, so I know a lot of teachers are really concerned about students using outside resources for their tests. So do you think that if we implemented online learning more, that teachers would start taking a more kind of AP exam approach, in which case they just test your skills and not really how well you can memorize easily accessible information?
It's a great question. And what is unfortunate is that a lot of what you're seeing from schools and teachers and professors and others is knee-jerk reactions where they're worried about certain things happening. And many of them may not be fully prepared for what technologies is readily available. So on edX, for example, micromasters and microbachelors result in credit. And can you imagine you can complete a micromasters from MIT in data science? A micromaster from MIT in data science for about $2,000. And then if you get admission into MIT, that counts, those credits count towards half your MIT data science degree, half. So why is MIT confident that you haven't cheated in those online courses? The reason you can be confident is that we have something called virtual proctoring. So each of these credit-bearing programs has virtually proctored exams and so on, where you take the exams that are part of your course, where you're virtually proctored with a video camera. And either real humans or AI technologies look at you taking the exam, and if they see, let's say, your pet puppy come into the room and whisper the answer in your ear, they say, you're cheating, right? So you can't have people coming to you and telling you the answer because you'll get caught cheating. So there are virtual digital technologies that prevent cheating. There's plagiarism detection tools. There are all of these tools that we can use to make cheating harder. And so I don't think that is such an issue when we can do virtual proctoring. Great question.
Okay, thank you. So there's another question from Audrey, interested in how you account for laboratory classes. So Audrey, would you like to unmute and ask your question, please?
Yeah, so the reason that I asked is so one of my school's concerns for next year is how they're going to, because not every student has access to different chemicals or certain things, there are certain materials for dissections and stuff in biology. So I was wondering how do edX online classes enable students to get that same lab experience when they might not have sufficient lab materials at home?
So the way, again, technology has moved a long way. I'd like you to go and there's a course on edX called Demo X. Okay, you can complete the course in 10 minutes. Check it out. We have all kinds of virtual labs today. We can use simulation and virtual gaming technologies where students can do all kinds of stuff. You can come into my circuits course, and we have a virtual circuits lab where you get a virtual breadboard, you get components, you can move components around, you can input music, you can listen to, you can do all kinds of fun stuff, and everybody can do a lab. And so imagine, even if you're from a poor school district which can't afford labs, you can do online labs. So there are all kinds of online labs available. And one professor used to joke that the virtual labs are better than the real thing. And the reason is that you don't have to, I remember when I was in IIT Madras, there were very few lab stations. They're expensive. And so we would all get in line, and I would only get a place at 3 o'clock in the morning to get a place to go do the lab. Imagine here, you can do labs whenever you want. It's online. So virtual labs is one solution, and there are a lot of technologies for virtual labs. We can also do 3D labs using virtual reality and so on. And then what you can also do is some of our courses, we have a course from University of Texas in Austin that actually ships a lab kit to the students. And it's a very inexpensive lab kit, and tens of thousands of lab kits have been shipped where it's an embedded system where people can do stuff. We are talking to a university that's going to be launching a robot course on edX where where students will download a robot kit. And so you can do a lot of these things completely online. But again, I do want to remind all of us that I'm not asking online to completely replace in-person education. I'm saying the future of education is blended, where you'll have a combination of in-person and online. So let me pause there. Again, a very good question.
Thank you. So there was a lot of discussion in the chat on with the ubiquitous nature of these courses. How does that impact jobs, prestigious degrees, things like that? So Bronwyn, could you unmute and ask your question? You phrased it very nicely.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for giving your talk today. And I wanted to ask whether you think that an online degree is equivalent in quality to one that you get physically at the university, and to what extent you think that students lose out on the experience of being able to connect more easily with their peers, with their mentors, and do things physically.
Another very good question. I'll answer the question in two ways. One is that the future of learning in universities is blended. Okay, where when you go to college, you'll be learning both in person and blended. So when learning becomes blended, you still get the benefits of your peers and working with other students. And you get the benefits of teamwork and you get the benefits of real labs. So with blended learning, which combines online and in person, you're getting the best of both worlds. But let me take an extreme position to answer your question about, what if a student has gotten a degree completely virtually? On edX, you'll be surprised to know that today we have launched a dozen online, 100% online master's degrees. One of them is an MBA from Boston University. It's 1/4 the cost of the campus degree. It's about $24,000. It's an MBA. We have a computer science degree from UT Austin. It's the top 10 ranked school for $10,000. The campus degree is $45,000. And the degree that you get at the end of it is identical to the campus degree. Okay, so when you put that on your degree, you say you're a master's in computer science from UT Austin or an MBA from BU. That's all it says. It's an MBA from BU. It doesn't say online anywhere. And universities are very comfortable today that you've learned the same amount. You're equivalent. It's the same degree. So as an employer, the employer sees, you're a master's from UT Austin. Boom, that's it. And so it's the same degree. The piece of paper that you get is identical, right? So there's no difference in most of the master's degrees. So the point there is that as online becomes more mainstream, the quality of learning has improved. We can ask, it's not just multiple choice. We can do very sophisticated assessments. And some of the assessments might be graded by hand, but the learning is all online. So I think that, well, once you have an online degree, employers won't even know the difference, right? But with the smaller credentials, like micro bachelors, micro masters, more and more employers are now coming around that the people that they're hiring with the smaller credentials are equally good. They've learned a lot. And in many cases, the employers are not, are moving away from full degrees and are willing to hire people with smaller credentials. And that's going to continue happening as well. Excellent question.
Okay, so another question relates to personal relationships. Isaac, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, so my question was, if you have a class with several thousand people in it, like you were talking about earlier, it wouldn't really be feasible for the professors to establish any kind of personal relationship with their students. And so I was curious if you thought that posed any kind of problem for online learning platforms like edX.
Well, let me ask you a question in return, using the Socratic method here. How many people do you think? So take the average public university. You want to guess how many students are in a lecture hall in a typical undergraduate, let's say, math class or intro to computer science class? You want to take a guess? How many students do you think are there in such a class on average at the average public university?
So there are a number of answers in the chat, 200 to 500.
The number can go into the thousands. Okay, universities, particularly for intro to computer science courses, many universities don't have lecture halls big enough to do it. And many universities have overflow rooms where the students watch the whole thing on video. So, and my colleague, David Pritchard, who's a professor of physics at MIT, he jokes that once you are in the third row of a lecture hall and beyond, that's distance education anyway. So whether you're in a 2,000-person classroom or a 500-person classroom, as a professor, it's very hard to connect with students. And online, and so once you go to 500 to 1,000, if technology can let you go to 1 million, why not? In fact, the Intro to Computer Science course from Harvard, that was highlighted, this course is on edX, that course was just highlighted in the New Yorker yesterday. It's been taken by 2 million students. Okay, this guy is a rock star, David Malin. Okay, total rock star. When you're standing there giving a lecture, if you squint a little bit, you'll think it's Steve Jobs talking about his new device. And some of you, there you go. David Lee tells us that he's audited that course. So the beauty is that you can learn from the best. Hundreds of thousands of people can be taking the course and doing all the graded assignments, instant feedback, and all of that stuff. Yes, I understand that it doesn't have the intimacy of a 10-person class. I mean, of course, if you can afford to go to a college where you have 10-person classes, I mean, how do you afford that? Maybe you can afford it and take some small person classes, but not everybody can do it. And even when you have 10-person classes, you don't get the instant feedback. And so, which is why this blended learning is such a good thing, where instant feedback is just a good thing. Okay, and no matter whether you're big classes or small classes, is a good thing. So, I'm a big believer that you combine the two, in person and online, you get the best of both worlds.
That's great. So related to that, Ritika has a question about what the blending looks like. Ritika, would you like to unmute and ask your question, please?
Hi, thank you so much for giving this presentation. It was really informative. My question was about how blended learning will look like in the future. So how will the material be spread out with online versus in-person classes?
Your name is Ritika?
Yes.
I love the question. And what I'm going to do is do what I do in my MIT classroom when I was teaching at MIT. And by the way, what I'm about to do right now is not very hard to do online, so I'm sort of going against a bit of my own case. So your question was, what are ways in which we can blend learning? Okay, let me throw it back at you. You raise your hand and Jen will pick somebody, and I want you all to answer. I want you all to brainstorm, and the world is our oyster. When the whole course is, let's say, assume that the entire course is available fully online, and the entire course available fully in person. And now as an instructor, I have a choice of mixing and matching using like Legos, okay? If you were the professor, what would you do? Okay, so I want to hear you say. So you guys are much more creative than I am. And so you tell me. So Jen, why don't you pick somebody or raise your hand and you tell us. Or Ritika, you tell us.
Okay, sure, Ritika.
I guess I would, like, just as a start, I would maybe have the lectures be in person and have other coursework or homework online, or maybe review sources online.
Great, perfect. So that's one example. And in fact, Professor Michael Seema, who teaches a chemistry course on a solid state chemistry course on edX. It's a freshman course at MIT. Everybody takes it as a chemistry course. He did that. He gave lectures physically. People came to lecture, but all the assessments and so on were done online using the edX platform. Great idea. That's one. A lot of you have raised your hands. Jen, you want to pick the next person?
Sure. How about Hitansh?
Yeah, she said assignments online. That's one big thing. Also, maybe like an online question board, right? So to communicate with the teachers. So as you're doing an assignment, maybe you have a question, you could just post on a board.
So what you're saying is that your lectures could be in person, but you could paste questions on the question board so you get instant feedback, and that's another great idea, because on campus. I spent 5 years in those days when I was in 82, in 77, actually, I spent 5 years in college. It took 5 years to get a degree. Yes, I can say that as a fact. I did not go and meet a professor in all my 5 years at MIT to ask a question at an office hour. There were no office hours. Okay, and we had, I was in a class of electrical engineering and electronics, 30 people, that's it, the class of 30. Not once did I go in to ask a question. The reason is that, like many of you, I was a late nighter. I would be swatting, 3 hours before a midterm at 4 o'clock in the morning. And what are the odds I'm going to find a professor waiting around to answer my questions? Zero, right? So how did I get my questions answered? We were in a dorm. I would yell, "Hey, does somebody know how to do this?" And somebody would yell back and say, "Yeah," and then I would go in and someone would help me. So the way it happens on edX, on edX, what happens is that you have a discussion forum and people ask questions and they get answered. And the first time we offered circuits on edX, The median time to get a response to your question was 11 minutes. Imagine that. And people were asking questions day and night from all over the world. And so, you can't find, it's very hard to go find a professor in an office hour. And, you don't want to bother. When you want your question answered, you want your question answered right there. So your idea of, even in a live class, to blend in a live discussion so that people can ask questions is great. And the other thing is, I'm not sure about you, but I was always shy in class to raise my hand and ask a question in front of 500 people with all the 500 people looking at me, but 250 of them thinking, what a dodo, what a dumb question. And the other 250 saying, ooh, man, this person has done their reading assignment. They know what they're talking about. And nobody likes you because you did that, right? So except the professor. Professors love it when this happens. I loved it when it happened. And so, but anonymously, we get a lot of questions. Any other, we want to have the next hand raiser to answer that. By the way, all great ideas. And another idea is one I talked about earlier, which is, why do you want to go to a lecture at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? Just do the lectures online, short lectures, and then you do the assignments, you do teamwork, and you get together and do projects in person. That's another way of doing, blended learning. And you want to guess on edX. People come to edX in all time zones. At what hour of day do you think we find most of the videos watched? Who wants to guess? What hour of day? Type your answer in the chat window. Oh man, you guys have guessed it. Most of you are typing in 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. You're right, you got it. Most of the videos on edX are watched between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. No surprise there, right? So that's one way of blending. You want to ask one final person for a comment on how to blend?
Sure. Nico, would you like to comment how to blend?
You may be on mute.
Nico Moldavine.
I'm sorry, what? I didn't have a question.
Would you like to, you had raised your hand looking to make a comment on how you would blend?
Oh, I'm sorry, my hand had been raised from earlier when there had been questions about what are you doing?
Oh, sorry.
Would you prefer doing online learning or not?
I see. No worries.
No worries.
Okay. I can answer the question if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely. Go ahead and answer the question.
I mean, it's the same thing. I'd rather have the lectures online, but have some sort of in office hours. Although most kids don't go to office hours in general, at least having some sort of, even if it's just a homework help session where you can go get in-person help. Because sometimes the instant gratification of getting the instant feedback isn't enough for learning. Like you need that one-on-one connection for explaining certain things.
That's great, Nico, great suggestion. So the idea here is that maybe the whole, frankly, that's a favor of learning that if I were to do my course at university, that's how I would do it. What I would do is put my entire course online. Okay, it's a 100%, the whole course is online. So if you wanted to go into the whole thing online, you could just go do it all online. So everything is available. And then what I would do is I would have teaching assistants and we would hold virtual and physical office hours. And we would say, okay, come on in, we're going to be hanging out in this hall between 1 a.m. and, or rather, 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. Come in anytime and come in groups and learn. We'll chalkboard, we'll brainstorm, we'll do projects together and kind of hang out, right? That's what I would do. And so those who want to can come in and hang out and maybe meet other classmates to go form study groups and things like that. So that's a great suggestion. Okay, so with that, Jen, let's move on to other questions. Thank you, Nico. Wonderful suggestion.
So I think we have time for about one more question. And Ian has a question on how did you actually get edX out there and adopted? So Ian, would you like to ask the details of your question, please?
You basically asked my question. I mean, just want to basically repeat that and add on one last part to that question. Like, I have, for like the past couple of years, been slowly working on making a math practice site that has been tested out and stuff like that by friends and people who have been taught by teachers that I've had before. But like, how did you get edX out there initially. Basically, is what I'm asking.
Got it. Well, first of all, launching edX, we had MIT had launched OpenCourseWare, in 2000, but there were no interactive exercises, no discussion forums, no certificates, no exams. So it was more materials. And so, I, for one, I had a circuits course on Open and OCW, and I'd been thinking about how to create online courses, and I had a online lab. And so many of us were thinking about it. And then in 2011, Harvard and MIT got together and launched edX, right? And a free resource for the whole world. We built this platform. And how did we get it out there? I would say that it was actually shocking. And the answer is, viral social networks. Very simple. When we just put up, the circuits course was put up there at 11 p.m. at night. We just put it up on the web. And you'll be shocked, but we had 10,000 students enroll in the circuits course in the first hour that it went up on the web. We were stunned. Okay, I just sat there watching people come in, and it was insane. No marketing, no advertising, no nothing. It just a website went up, circuits course, boom, people showed up, right? So I would say the number one thing was social. People found out about it and told others, and I think that created this network effect, and people told each other, and this way, today we have 33 million users on the platform, and people have good things to say. It's great universities like MIT, Harvard, Oxford, Stanford, others offering courses on edX, a great quality, certificates and so on. So what's not to like, right? So it's really through word of mouth, social networks. So in fact, Jen, if you can indulge us for another 2 minutes, can you type into the chat session how you found out about edX?
That'd be great.
So this way, so we can very quickly see, frankly, if I had my act together, I would have put up a poll that had you, take up an online Zoom poll. But once you put up in the chat session, how do you hear it from? From your school teacher, from your friend? You were searching for something on the web and you found it. So let me see if I can go and
the answers are BWSI, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly.
So we have BWSI. We have from Google, from my dad. I randomly saw it online. Can we go and read off some of these things from the chats? Let me just go to the chat session here, and I just read it off myself. For my parents, for my friends at Google, my friend mentioned it. My teacher mentioned it. I was just searching for free AI courses. I was searching on Google. My dad, through searching, online search. My parents, I needed to learn pre-calc, so I Googled it. So that's it. A lot of people Google. So as an example, if you Google a course, edX usually appears among the first 1 or 2 or 3 courses. edX shows up in the first 1 or 2 or 3 in search, and that's how people find out about it. So really, it's through social networks, and I think that's through word of mouth. So of course, at edX as a nonprofit, we totally love it when you get the word out on your networks. If you tweet about edX, if you post about edX and your courses on Facebook, we love it because that brings more people starting others. By the way, someone just commented that College Board launching online AP courses. By the way, on edX, we have dozens of high school level AP courses, 100% online, available for free. AP Comp Sci, we have 3 of them. AP Physics, AP Chemistry, AP Bio, French, a number of AP courses available fully online. We also have some high schools like Western High Schools has launched a number of short courses that are called AP on-ramp courses. These are 1-week courses that you can take to prepare for an AP course. So I think even in high schools, AP is making a big impact. So let me stop there, and Jen, pass it back to you.
So thank you so much, Professor Agarwal. This was just a fascinating seminar, and clearly we'll send you the chat so you can see how engaged the students were. There was a lot of discussion, and this has been fantastic. Thank you. Lisa, could you please recognize the students to give their thanks?
So I'm standing in for Lisa, somewhat.
Joel.
I'd like to call Tia up and have her unmute so that she can help thank and present to Professor Agarwal.
Hi, I'm Thea. I first wanted just to say thank you for coming to speak with us. Your talk really opened my eyes to the opportunities online for education and how education is destined to change in the not so distant future. And I really love the idea that online learning can create open admissions with blended, modular, and lifelong learning. And we can give opportunities for everyone to get degrees without the expensive costs of both money and time in the education system we currently use. And so to thank you, we'd like to present to you a VivaWorks t-shirt. So thank you once again for speaking with us.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. It's been a blast chatting with you. And I think you all have been the absolute most engaged group in terms of interaction that I've given a virtual talk to, I think, in my life. You guys are fantastic.
I'd also like to call up Declan and for him to say something as well.
All right, so hi, Professor Agarwal. We all want to thank you so much for speaking today. I know that I personally really loved your talk, especially about the future of education with blended, modular, and lifelong learning, and also how COVID is accelerating these new types of education. So we would like to virtually present you with the BWSI t-shirt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Declan. Thank you, Tia.
Oh my goodness, the t-shirt showed up already. Here we go. Thank you all.
We've seen some video magic